Welcome to Her Sport, Ireland's only media platform dedicated to women in sport. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter to stay updated with all the latest news in women's sports. I'm joined here today by Lissie Mackintosh. Lissie is a Formula One content creator with over 25,000 followers on TikTok. She's a contributing journalist at Dive Bomb Motorsports magazine and host of her own podcast, Going Purple. Lissie, thanks for joining us today. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm great. It's lovely to be here chatting about something that I'm very passionate about. And yeah, things have been going great. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's just jump straight into your TikTok video that went viral in response to some comments made by Christian Horner, the team principal of the Red Bull F1 team. Now, Horner kind of claimed that young girls' growing interest in Formula One is down to good-looking drivers. And you addressed this, kind of asserting some of the reasons why female fans might be interested in Formula One, and asking that men in positions of influence, like Christian Horner, not reduce or pigeon-hole fans of the sport, which seems like a very reasonable request. But I think... Yes, I think, the real issue you're getting into and what we at Her Sports are really interested in is the dissemination of a narrative that women cannot like a sport for the sport itself.
Yeah, I mean, that video, I remember that video very well. I was thinking, I kind of saw these comments. I remember it so well. I saw them in the evening and I thought maybe I'll just pop a quick video up now. That's the beauty of TikTok. You can post something, everyone can create content. It's absolutely fantastic. And I thought, no, actually, I quite want to do something different. So I sat down the next day, I paint in it. I paint a lot of different things I am. So whether that's a content creator or a graduate, a sister, whatever it is. And I'm just saying, Christian Horner, it's great that you're knowledgeable about why young women in particular are entering the sport, but I think it is very harmful to pigeonhole all the young women or all the new young women interested in Formula One and solely attribute that to, in his opinion, the good-looking drivers. I think a man in such a position of power, in my opinion, should be slightly more nuanced than that. And I just thought it would be interesting to kind of pull my thoughts together. And as I say, kind of release that into the world. And I remember telling some of my friends, I'm working on this video. And they were like, Lissie, you are going to get a lot of backlash for that. And I was like, no, it's fine. Maybe 1,000 people will see it. It's absolutely fine. As you say, it then went kind of viral. It's got now over, I think, just around 400,000 views, which blows my mind. And actually, I ended up learning a lot from posting that video. Some of the comments were some of the meanest I've ever seen in my life. I think that was when I woke up and I kind of thought, being a content creator can be absolutely brutal. And I think we'll talk later about, women's treatment in motorsports, but comments like, I see you're in the kitchen, stay there, don't leave. How dare you pretend you know anything? It was very, very revealing to me. But no, I think, yes, of course, a lot of women and a lot of young girls, I'm sure, are interested in Formula One because of the drivers. They're very marketable. A lot of them are very funny. And sure that, of course, they have to be fit to be drivers. They have to train a lot. They have to work out a lot. But I think negating the group of women who watch Formula One because they've watched it for years with their parents, or, they've been watching it since they were 2 years old, or they want to be a race car driver, or they want to be an engineer. It's not right to do so. And that's what my video was trying to do, was kind of bringing light to that. So, but yeah, it was very, very interesting. Formula One is growing massively, which is very exciting to see, especially as a young woman myself. It's capitalizing on bringing young people in, especially women. And so I feel as though if they're going to come in and receive comments like that from one of the 10 team principals, all of whom are men at the moment, there needs to be these safe spaces online. And I think that's, again, the beauty of TikTok is these communities have been able to be, they've been created. Now there's over 37,000 people following me. And it's just kind of insane to think, it's cool to now come forward and say, I'm a fan of the sport and I'm part of a community. And I think that's one of the reasons I love being a woman, is there are such incredible female creators and we'll all boost each other and we'll all kind of have each other's backs. And I don't know, I feel very lucky to be part of that.
Motorsport, is really growing in
Mm-hmm.
terms of its fandom, as you mentioned. But it has sort of historically been a male-dominated sport.
Mm-hmm.
And as a journalist and content creator in the Formula One area and the motorsport area, are you aware of, or perhaps, you've already mentioned that you've experienced some of the disparagement that females in motorsport are subject to?
I have witnessed a lot of, I think when it comes to being a content creator, and also, when you work in the sport, you are a fan of the sport, of course. And I think the first thing that a lot of the time comes my way whenever I speak on Formula One is either completely being ignored, or it's, are you really a Formula One fan? Yeah, come on, explain what downforce is then. I've had that happen in a restaurant full of people, and you just kind of, we're in 2022, is this seriously still happening? I think not being taken seriously is kind of swept under the rug. And I think, you kind of take it on the chin. And I think there are a lot of things, being a woman in such a male dominated sport, that you take on the chin. I was talking the other day about how measured I feel I have to be a lot of the time. I would love, especially in content creation, I think I am very, very much myself, but it's little things like, oh, maybe I shouldn't wear pink today because, will I be taken seriously if I'm wearing pink? Or, maybe I shouldn't laugh like that. And I just think, I would say not a lot of men feel the same way. I think they put on their shirt and they get ready for work and they do their job. And I sometimes wish that women could experience the same thing. And I think that's why it's great that these conversations are happening. Formula One, every driver on the grid is male. I think if you sat down and you just watched the Formula One race on a Sunday, you would hear 2 male commentators, you would see 10 male team principals, 20 male drivers, and garages full of male engineers. And I think it's great that there's work being done, especially behind the scenes. I think we'll talk about this later as well, as how women are becoming, more prominent in roles behind the scenes in Formula One teams. But I think until that representation is happening on the grid, it's great that we're having these conversations, but sometimes I feel as if, the people who are tuning into conversations about why Formula One isn't more diverse and why women are still being treated a certain way within motorsports or whatever, I do sometimes think, are we preaching to the choir? And until we see that physical representation on the Formula One grid of seeing a female driver, having a female team principal, Claire Williams was amazing in her role. I think that these conversations need to be followed up by action. And I really do hope to see that happening in the next few years.
Now, there are more females becoming involved in things behind the scenes. I know one of the most influential figures is Ellie Norman, the head of communications. Now, she is the first female executive, and she's played a huge role in rebranding Formula One. And I think having role models and seeing women break the bias, competing and working at the highest levels in motorsport is really important when it comes to getting more female fans and just getting women involved in the sport. Mm-hmm. So for you personally, do you have sort of female motorsport heroes or role models?
Definitely. I think obviously I come slightly more from the journalism side of things, but I look at women like Ruth Buscombe and Hannah Schmitz and, amazing female strategists. But for me, the people I've always looked up to are people like Rachel Brooks, Natalie Pinkham, Rosanna Tennant, who are just so incredibly good at what they do. And I love the fact that they all campaign for having more women in Formula One alongside what they do. Now, I do find that very, very interesting. I think, even women like Susie Wolff, she is like, I am obsessed with Susie Wolff. Seeing her on Drive to Survive, I kind of was sitting there like, but no, I think it's great. They're amazing at their jobs, but they also take on these roles. And I think, looking at why there aren't more women in Formula One in terms of journalism, in terms of engineering, I think it's funny how women who work in these roles kind of automatically take on the role of campaigner and of activists for getting more women involved in the sport. And I think, it's not a big ask of them, but I think it's very commendable what they do. Equally, I don't think they can have their jobs and not take on those extra roles, because there is so much underrepresentation of women in the sport that I think, we need more relatable role models. And I am really hoping that that's what I can do through my content. But I also hope, I also see that, and I see that that's what they do in their roles. which I think is epic. And I think they're all such strong women and we need more of them. They're great.
And maybe we can just talk about the W Series, which launched in 2018 as an all-women's free-to-enter championship. And what do you think about the W Series? Are you a fan of it?
Yeah, I am. I really am. I think, you know, the W Series is not a bad thing. I know there was a lot of criticism when the W Series was announced as a new series, as a new racing series. A lot of people thought it was quite patronizing to women because, you know, they're racing in a Formula 3 spec car. So obviously in motorsports, you would start in karting and then you'd work your way up the ranks to Formula 1. So Formula 3, Formula 2, and then Formula 1, that way up. So it's not as great a car as Formula 1. Now, it's great that the W Series is free and there's prize money. But I think there's more that needs to be done in terms of what happens after the W Series. So a lot of women have said, I wouldn't be racing without the W Series. And that in itself is fantastic. But we're still not seeing any women drivers in Formula 3. And that's because Formula 3 is so expensive. Motorsport is so expensive. That we need to, you know, help these women keep going and keep progressing. Equally, you know, as I say, giving women these opportunities to race in itself is fantastic. And I'm so for the W Series. I mean, look at Jamie Chadwick. She's so successful and she's now working in a role at Williams. And I met Jessica Hawkins the other day at an Aston Martin event. She's their driver ambassador. And she is just so cool. She was actually the James Bond stunt driver in No Time to Die. But, you know, it's just giving them an opportunity to race. But I think more still needs to be done in that area for sure.
You mentioned it very briefly earlier, but the Drive to Survive Netflix series,
yes.
I know it's now entering its 4th season, I believe. And for people who don't know, it's basically a behind the scenes look at the world of motorsport, Formula 1. And it has received some criticism for, I guess, bending the truth a little or maybe over dramatizing certain relationships. How do you feel about the show? Do you think it's beneficial for the sport or is it doing more damage than good?
I will say, I sense a lot actually. I think it's breathed a huge amount of life into the sport. But I will say, I think their job was quite easy last season. The 2021 Formula 1 season was kind of just like a TV show in itself. And so, you know, of course, there's a lot of dramatization. You know, there's fake car noises. They take sound bites and they'll put them over certain clips. I think if you take it with a pinch of salt, it can be great fun. Do I think it's portraying a slightly unrealistic version of the sport? Sure. And is that harmful? I don't know. I mean, I think it's bringing new fans in. I think maybe if they were to watch a race, they might not feel the same excitement. So maybe it's harmful in that way. But I think it's, you know, it's keeping Formula 1 young and it's keeping Formula 1 fresh.
What are your hopes and maybe some expectations for women in the coming years in, you know, racing, but also in other sort of behind the scenes roles in motorsport?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very interesting talking about the female representation in the engineering side of the sport. I think, you know, it's still, the numbers are very, very low. And I think something I hope to see more of is, you know, more women becoming, having the confidence to be involved in those roles. And I do think it goes back to, you know, even what I was saying about not thinking those jobs were for me. And I really hope to see more kind of grassroots and school level, you know, introduction of women into STEM subjects. And as I say, we need more relatable role models in the sport to show that, oh, hey, look, there's a female engineer on the screen. She's changing a tire. That's really cool. Instead of, oh, I think that's a male job, so maybe I'll do something else. I think there needs to be more kind of conversation, especially with young children and young female kids of, you know, I can do exactly what my male schoolmate or whatever can do. You know, I am just as good as them and I'm just as clever as them. And I think if we're getting more girls involved in STEM subjects and they're later on applying for those engineering roles, but, you know, if there's more females to choose from, there's going to be more females in the sport. And that's kind of the way things work. And I think one of the things I would love to be able to keep doing is, you know, inspiring young women to keep, you know, pursuing those goals. And this is not a male dominated sport, though it may seem it. There are incredible women involved in the sport. And I hope to keep going. And as I say, you know, Formula 1 is on the up. It's growing, it's getting younger, it's getting more exciting. But I think there's more work that Formula 1 themselves can do to bring in more young creative people and kind of have them on screen. And I think I said before, Formula One does a lot to get new fans involved, but it's a very, very technical sport. And so I hope to be someone, in the future, my vision is to become a Formula One presenter. I'd absolutely love to do that and kind of be presenting in a younger way, in a more exciting way. And I think, as I say, there are journalists that do that already, but just to build on that, I think that would be something that's absolutely epic.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts on women in motorsport. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to having more conversations like this one. So thank you, Lissie. You can find Lissie on TikTok, Instagram, and her podcast, Going Purple. Thank you again for your time today, Lissie.
Thank you so much.